I write a monthly newsletter, and I think that you should too. I've got 5 reasons why I started my newsletter, and by the end of this video, I think you might feel inspired to start your own email newsletter as well. And if you are, you can check out my follow-up video to this, where I show exactly how I do it using Things and Obsidian, and I'll share my entire process. But for now, I want to talk a little bit about why I write a newsletter. I'm coming up on the 4-year anniversary of the Dan Chronicles. You can see I'm wearing a shirt right now, the Dan Chronicles newsletter. And I wanted to talk a little bit about why I, as just a regular person, decided to start an email newsletter and why I think that you should start one as well. I also just want to say that this video is not me trying to get you to sign up for my newsletter. I don't actually care. I don't make any money off of it. If you find it interesting, feel free to sign up. And if not, don't. It's no skin off my back. In a few moments, you'll see exactly why I started it, and it's not just to get more followers. So the Dan Chronicles is an email newsletter with a specific format. There's an intro where I sort of casually talk about whatever is on my mind, and then there is 5 different sections, where in each section I talk about something that caught my eye in the past month. That's it. I see myself as a curator more than anything, and the fact of going through and deciding what to include in my newsletter makes me more thoughtful about the content that I'm consuming and thinking about why I actually find it interesting and useful, and makes me actually process those thoughts. That alone, I think, is a great reason to start a newsletter. I took inspiration for my newsletter from 3 different email newsletters. The first one is the old Nat Eliason Monday Medley. Before he got into crypto, he had a weekly Monday email where it was very similar in format to what I got, where he shared some things that caught his attention in the past week. You may remember Nat Eliason. He had a really popular post about Roam, which is another note-taking system that I think a lot of people used before they got into Obsidian, myself included. And he was a major reason why I discovered the whole PKM, personal knowledge management, Obsidian world. The second email newsletter is Kevin Rose's old email newsletter, also before he got into crypto. Kevin Rose was the founder of Dig, which is a competitor to Reddit, and he used to have a monthly newsletter where he would share some interesting things, and I always found it super just interesting to kind of see what caught his attention, and I really enjoyed getting that every month before he stopped. And the final newsletter is still active. It's called Next Draft. It's by Dave Pell, and it's a daily newsletter where he kind of is the curator, the editor of the internet, where he collects the best writing every single day. And it's a wonderful newsletter, but it's also just a lot of content. It can be too much to get through, and I don't find myself reading it every day, but every so often I'll jump into it. But either way, it's definitely a big inspiration for me. If you're starting your own newsletter, I encourage you to take a look at other people's content who you like, and pick out the things that you like and use their level of quality as the bar that you set for yourself for your own newsletter, because that will allow you to shortcut to success in terms of what you're going to be creating and doing. All right, with that intro, let's jump into the 5 reasons why I started a newsletter and why I think you should as well. It's a great way to stay in touch with people. I've historically been really bad at keeping in contact with people, and I see my newsletter as a form of leverage for maintaining contact with a large number of people. I definitely consider myself an introvert, and a newsletter is the perfect way to maintain social contact with people for an introvert. I have a lot of personal friends and family who subscribe to the newsletter, and it's always great to see somebody in person and have something to talk about. They'll bring up something that they read in the newsletter, and it's a great way to kind of spark that conversation and find a shared interest. It shows where our interests are similar, and also allows them to find things that they might find interesting but don't know much about, so they can ask me about it, because often if I'm sharing something in the newsletter, it's something that I know a little bit about. An email newsletter does not replace actually working at friendships and building a network, but it can be a great tool to add to your tool belt for doing all of that. It's a way to process your thoughts. I've mentioned before that writing is thinking. Formulating your newsletter makes you think about why you find a topic interesting and makes you actually think about how to communicate that to other people. Writing helps you identify your gaps in understanding of a specific topic. I'll be surprised about writing about a topic that I feel like I know really well, and I end up doing a lot of searching and trying to find additional information that I didn't realize were gaps in my knowledge. Writing a newsletter is a way to flex your thinking muscle, right? And who doesn't like to exercise their brain? They're love letters to your future self. A newsletter is a great way to stay in touch with other people, but each issue is actually a gift to your future self. It's a snapshot of what you're thinking about at any given time, and it's a joy to go back and review at a future date. Sometimes I want to go back and see when I was first thinking about a topic and what I was thinking about it. And other times I'm just feeling nostalgic and I want to take a stroll down memory lane. Giving gifts like this to my future self is a big motivator for me for writing, for taking pictures, for taking videos, because I feel like it's a way to capture the moment for whatever is meaningful to me at the time and save it and capture it for my future self. It helps people see new elements of your personality. We collect friends, acquaintances, colleagues from different parts of our lives, and we choose what aspects of our personality to share with those people, depending on the context of that relationship. Your work friends are going to see a different part of you than your social friends. A newsletter is a way to share more sides of yourself with a wider audience. I've had a few colleagues describe an aha moment where they realized that we had shared interests that they didn't realize. And acquaintances will sometimes realize that we had more in common than they thought. Even when people don't read every word of a newsletter, and I really don't expect them to, the mere fact that it exists hints at a richer inner life than I think most people think about when they meet new people. It helps balance out your input-output ratio. I think a lot about my input-output ratio. I don't want to be just a mindless consumer, watching TV or movies and reading articles, books, and playing video games, all that sort of stuff, without putting anything out into the world or doing anything with that stuff that I'm consuming. I think it's really easy to just be a consumer, but I just don't feel right about that personally. For me, I just feel imbalanced. Doing something with that input, such as writing a newsletter or writing a blog or making videos on YouTube like this, are a great way to kind of work on that ratio and make it more balanced. It allows you to join the conversation, participate in what's happening, and just generally feel better about all the things that you're consuming and learning. If your input-output ratio is currently really off balance with input, I highly encourage you to just spend some time working on that ratio, and I think that you'll really start feeling better about yourself. You'll be surprised at how much of an impact that it has. And that's it. In the next video, I'll share exactly how I make my newsletter. I do it with the to-do app Things and Obsidian, and I send the email in Substack, and I'll show you exactly my process for doing that I've honed over the past 3+ years. You may like the same tool stack for yourself. You might want to change it a little bit, but I'll show you how I've been doing it. And again, if you've liked this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, subscribe to my newsletter if it sounds interesting, and I'll see you in the next video.